By 1750, the East India Company had been trading for nearly 150 years and had substantial commercial and political influence. But how did they make the transition from trading to ruling? Enter Major General Robert Clive and Warren Hastings. Both individuals saw the removal of the Mughal Empire and the Dutch and French East India Companies, and paved the way for a British Raj. The EIC became a strong force with a dominant military power. Robert Clive, a prominent military leader in India, quickly worked his way up the ranks with various successful battles. Robert was questioned and criticised about the methods he used whilst in India, especially when compared to his successor, Warren Hastings, who was credited for trying to bring the cultural roots back, nevertheless still in charge of a company that was draining the country. The battles of Plassey and Buxar led to the EIC having a majority of control and a stronghold for nearly 50 years. That was until the Indian Rebellion.
The East India Company had been sucked increasingly into Indian politics because of the disintegration of the Mughal Empire.
It undergoes a major shock when Nadir Shah the Persian arrives in 1739 and runs off, loots Delhi, runs off with 10,000 wagons full of jewels, basically everything the Mughals have gathered. The East India Company finds itself confronted with a very fragmented political map. And fairly early on, they realised that with advanced European military techniques, that they can, one by one, take over each of these different powers. Clive is one of the key figures, obviously, in the creation of a British Empire in India.
Well, Clive rose quite dramatically from being a writer or clerk in the company's service to commanding its armies and becoming governor of Bengal.
Who realises there's a fortune to be made and goes out and grabs the opportunity.
And the way he did it was by a couple of very successful military campaigns.
One is the Battle of Plassey, and the other is the Battle of Buxar. He still has whatever it is, 5,000 or 6,000 troops facing 100,000 troops.
Basically, 100 sepoys could take on 10,000 Mughal cavalry and defeat them by just being very effective with their artillery and their bayonets. So Indian armies tended to be very big, very unwieldy, very badly trained. It was size rather than quality of training and personnel.
When the Kingdom of Awadh, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam, and the exiled Nawab of Bengal, Mir Qasim, all gang together. And this, in a sense, is the last great attempt by the old Mughal Empire to take on the company, but they're massively defeated. It's a bloody battle, it could go either way for a long time, but in the end, it's a catastrophic defeat for the three different Mughal armies.
From, I guess, the Battle of Plassey is one key moment, onwards for the next century or so, you have this kind of extension of British power, in particular extension of British military power, but British administrative and military power, in a series of fits and starts. It's not a planned process, or at least not until 1830s or something. It's a sequence of moments where the British defeat groups of people, states, powers, rebels, who they see as a threat to their authority somehow or other.
The East India Company advances from just a trading post on the east coast to seize more or less half of Hindustan. The British realise that the country is theirs to loot, to drain, to do what they like with.
He's been criticised a lot by Indian nationalists because he was the founder of British rule in India. He was, I think, to a large extent unfairly criticised because he was an adventurer, he was ambitious, but, that was the name of the game in the 18th century. He did not massacre civilian populations, which a lot of Indian rulers did when they conquered.
And while the letters they're receiving from their bosses in London are saying, you're a trading organisation, you're there to trade, you're not there to rule, you get the realisation by the men on the spot that they can do whatever they like. And Clive writes over the head of the directors of the company to the Prime Minister Pitt and says, if we want to, we can march to Delhi tomorrow. There is no force in this country which now can stop us. And you've got to realise that the situation has changed dramatically.